Hello, everybody, and welcome to Season 2, Episode 10 of the Brock of the Buzzard podcast. I'm your host, Brock Kowalski, and before I get started on this very long show, please like the video, share the video, and subscribe, and you can find me on all of the social medias in the entry link below. And now on to the show. This episode is called A New York State of Mind. I'm here to formally announce that I'm headed back to the team that made me fall in love with the game of basketball, the New York Knicks. Why leave Cleveland? To put it simply, the fire in my belly just wasn't there. I thought long and hard over this decision. I also want to make this very clear. This was not a decision that was made with my brain, but my heart. I realized the only place where I could see my journalism career taking off was truly my NBA home in Madison Square Garden with the orange and blue, the New York Knicks. Furthermore, this team has made me not only fall in love with the game once again, but also being a diehard Knicks fan. A major reason why is they play hard-nosed defense, have clutch shot making, and also have the chemistry you see from winning teams. These Knicks have it, meaning the chemistry, on and off the court. And a major piece to the puzzle is Jalen Brunson, who has become my favorite player to watch across the league. Brunson's winning mindset. When the Knicks front office finally inked Brunson to his 4-year, $100+ million contract, even after all the petty stuff they did, if you know what the Knicks brass did this past summer, which resulted in them getting a tampering penalty from the league. I still loved this move from the Knicks front office from day one, because not only did he bring a steady point guard, to a team that lacked that for over a decade, but he also brought the winning mindset back to MSG. Something the Knicks have been lacking since the team signed Tyson Chandler almost a decade ago. It could be over a decade. I lost track of years. I didn't look it up, so bear with me. He has brought that and so much more. Brunson is having his best season of his career, averaging 23.6 points and 6.2 assists. With his play, he has elevated the play of many of his teammates, including Julius Randle, Emmanuel Quickley, and so many others. I'm going on the record saying this. The Knicks are fun to watch once again. Something that hasn't been said in a very long time. If you know, you know. And this is truly the best team they've had in over a decade. And the addition of Brunson is a major reason why. Regaining trust in the Knicks front office. After the team decided to part ways with my two favorite players, Carmelo Anthony and Kristaps Porzingis, for virtually nothing, which it really resulted in just picks, but that's here nor there. I decided to jump ship. In this vicious cycle of, quote, being a bandwagon, which has lasted for almost 3 damn years already, it's crazy to even think about, started in the first place. But since last summer, the team has made winning moves ever since. Along with acquiring Brunson, the Knicks front office also added center Isaiah Hartenstein, who provides much needed rebounding off the Knicks bench. But another great move was made at the trade deadline, acquiring Josh Hart from the Portland Trailblazers. Hart's impact. Since Hart has arrived, the Knicks are 6-0, and Hart does everything well and has been everything the Knicks have needed, averaging 13.8 points per game, 5.3 rebounds per game, and 3.2 assists per game. The former Villanova Wildcat and college teammate of Jalen Brunson brings the same identical mindset, the winning mindset, which has him being a seamless fit with the Knicks. The future. The Knicks' future now looks the brightest it has looked in the last number of years, with their big three of Brunson, Randall, and RJ Barrett locked up for the foreseeable future and having a much deeper bench than in years past. Furthermore, I would expect the Knicks front office to be very aggressive this summer with their cap space, tradable contracts, and draft assets. Again, if you know what those are, you know. If you're a true Knicks fan, you should know that information. But that's here nor there to make this team even better going forward. More Knicks news. The Knicks announced earlier today that they have signed guard Dwayne Washington Jr. to a two-way contract. Washington averaged 7.9 points in 31 games this season with Phoenix. Yet another good, solid, underrated move made by the Knicks front office. And now on to last night's game against the division rival Boston Celtics. Last night at MSG in front of an electric crowd, excuse me, I can't talk right now, the Knicks were able to make a statement against the best team in the NBA, led by Julius Randle and Emmanuel Quickley. The Knicks were also able to hold the Celtics to one of their worst performances of the year, beating Boston 109-94. The final stats. First, for the victorious New York Knicks. Julius Randle had 23 points and 7 rebounds. Emmanuel Quickley, off the Knicks bench, had also 23 points and 3 rebounds. Jalen Brunson had 17 points and 4 rebounds. Josh Hart, off the Knicks bench, had another major impact last night. He had 12 points and 5 assists. Mitchell Robinson, who we will talk about in just a second, had 10 points and 13 rebounds. And RJ Barrett had a very dismal night, had 10 points and 7 rebounds. But that's another conversation for another day. For the Boston Celtics, who were without Jaylen Brown, Malcolm Brogdon had 22 points and 2 assists. Marcus Smart had 19 points and 4 rebounds. Jason Tatum had one of his worst games of the season, having just 14 points and 9 assists, which ultimately resulted in him getting so frustrated that he got ejected from last night's contest. Derek White had 13 points and 6 rebounds, and Al Horford had 13 points and just a couple of boards. The keys to victory. Defending the three-point shot. The Knicks did a brilliant job last night defending the three-point shot, holding the Celtics, who were red hot from behind the arc post All-Star break headed into last night's contest, shot just 9 for 42. I'll repeat that one more time just to let it sink in for a second. 9 for 42, which equates to just 21.4%. Robinson's impact. Mitchell Robinson's numbers may not jump off the page, but his impact was felt throughout the game on both ends. Defensively, blocking shots, in particular a huge block on Jason Tatum, and protecting the glass, and offensively cleaning up misses at critical parts of the game. Clutch shot making. After having a tremendous first quarter on both ends, the Knicks led by double digits almost the entire way. But when the Celtics would have an 8-0 run, a 6-0 run, etc., the Knicks would respond, which shows you how far this team has come this season. Their next game is tomorrow night from MSG against yet another division rival, the Brooklyn Nets. You can catch the game at 7:30 p.m. Eastern on MSG, Yes Network, or NBA League Pass. If worst comes to worst, you have neither of those channels. But in Western New York in particular, you have both on most TV providers, so finding the game should not be an issue for us here in the state of New York. But moving on to a piece of Bills news that to me wasn't that surprising. Frazier quits on Bills. This morning, the Bills announced defensive coordinator Leslie Frazier has decided to, quote, step away from coaching in 2023, but plans to return in 2024. My reaction. To put it bluntly, he quit. He didn't get fired because the Bills would have said otherwise. Every NFL team says when a coach is fired that so-and-so has been either fired, bluntly said it, or relieved of their duties. And that wasn't said in that statement or that little sentence I just read to you. The Bills said again, and I quote, Frazier has decided to, quote, step away from coaching in 2023, but plans to return in 2024, which essentially means he quit. And he's looking for another job headed into the 2024 season. But furthermore, it didn't surprise me at all, based on the criticism he's gotten over the last several years with the Bills' epic collapses over the last 2 years in particular. It doesn't surprise me because of how all the adversity played out with Damar Hamlin and things like that. It doesn't surprise me. But with that all said, this could have happened in maybe a month ago. Maybe the Bills wouldn't be in as much trouble as they are now, because the timing is just downright awful for the Buffalo Bills. What now? The Bills will have a defensive coordinator, and who I believe is at the top of Sean McDermott's list is a shocking one, but I believe the Bills will hire Wade Phillips. I know he is in the XFL coaching as we speak, but Bills fans should know that Von Miller, who Phillips had in LA, will have a major say in this decision. And I do not see Sean McDermott taking on both roles of being head coach and defensive coordinator, because simply his ego isn't that big. As a matter of fact, McDermott empowers people to succeed. Yes, he will have a say in his defense like he's had over his 6, 7. I've lost track on how many years he's been in Buffalo. It's either 6 or 7 years that he's been with Leslie Frazier. But do I see the Bills without a defensive coordinator and Sean McDermott taking on both roles? Simple answer, I don't see it. But on to the racing portion of the show, which is a major part of the show, so let's get started. Rowdy wins in Fontana. This past Sunday, I believe the two-time Cup Series champion Kyle Busch, along with his number 8 Richard Childress Racing team, proved that they are a legit championship contender by passing the dominant car Ross Chastain, who won the first 2 stages of the race, prior to the last pit stop of the day, then running away in the final 30-plus laps to seal the victory. Impressive stats, 2 in particular that were noteworthy following Sunday's race. Kyle Busch now holds the record for most consecutive seasons with at least 1 victory, 19, surpassing one of the greatest of all time, if not the greatest of all time, in Richard Petty, who had 18 consecutive seasons with a Cup Series victory. Furthermore, with Busch's win on Sunday, the Busch brothers, Kyle and Kurt, now hold the record of most Cup Series wins by a pair of brothers at 95, surpassing the Allisons, Bobby and Donnie, at 94. What's next? In my opinion, the next step for Busch in the number 18 is quite simple. Continue to bring fast race cars. Win races, win stages, to rack up playoff points to help you win the 2023 Cup Series Championship in November. And finally, the brand of motorsport that everybody across America is getting into, so let's talk about it. F1 season predictions. With the F1 World Championship beginning this Sunday, I thought it would be a perfect time to make some predictions. The first prediction I'm going to make here is a very close title fight. I believe that this season you will see nowhere near the dominance you saw last season from Red Bull and Max Verstappen as you did last year. Yes, Red Bull still has an advantage, and it showed last week when the cars went to Bahrain for preseason testing. But Ferrari, I believe, will make less mistakes, meaning in pit strategy and so on and so forth, as they did last year. And Mercedes is a lot closer and has a much more competitive car out of the gate than they did last year. If you know how bad Mercedes was at the start of last year, they were awful. They weren't even close to Ferrari and Red Bull at the start of last year. But to close the year, they were a lot closer, and I believe that will remain a constant throughout the 2023 Formula One World Championship. As a result, this season will be a lot closer in the Drivers' and Constructors' Championships. My second prediction is this. I think we'll have a not 1, not 2, but 3-way title fight for the Drivers' Championship. Going off my last point, the 3 best drivers in the F1 field, Verstappen, Leclerc, and Hamilton, will fight all season for the Drivers' Championship. And my final point is this. America's team. Haas F1 and Aston Martin step up. McLaren and Alpine take steps back. I believe both Aston Martin and Haas will step up in 2023 just because of who they've added. Nico Hülkenberg for Haas F1 and Fernando Alonso, who's a two-time Formula One world champion, headed over to Aston Martin. Will both have major impacts on their new teams. With that being said, though, I believe McLaren and Alpine will take steps backwards, just based off of their cars' performances in preseason testing that I just spoke of that took place just last week in Bahrain, which didn't impress me at all. If you looked at just time, I didn't watch a single second of that test, but I obviously followed through social media, and those two cars were not good at all. So I fully expect those two teams to take steps back in 2023. As a matter of fact, the 2023 season kicks off on Sunday. Like I said, you can catch that at 10 a.m. Eastern on ESPN. And that'll do it for this long episode of the Brock of the Buzzer podcast. If you made it through the whole thing, I thank you very, very much. Please like the video, share the video, and subscribe. And I'll see you all on the next episode of the Brock of the Buzzer podcast. Have a wonderful day, weekend, or so on and so forth. I'll see you all very soon.